I've already put in a request for a special barbecue that they have. I was just touted on a place called ZZQ.
Planet Guitar has the pleasure of interviewing Gary Lucas, who is perhaps most famous for his work with Captain Beefheart and Jeff Buckley. However, he's had an extraordinary career beyond that and has also had a lifetime relationship with Italy, which we hope to explore today. Welcome, Gary.
Hey, it's nice to be here, Paul. Thank you for inviting me.
You were born on the 20th of June, 1952, in the town of Syracuse, New York, which was named after that one in Sicily. Have you ever been?
No, I've been in Sicily. I've played there a few times, basically in Palermo and Capo d'Orlando, I'm trying to recall, but never made it to Syracuse. So it's on the agenda. I'm always hoping to get some more shows there.
It's
If
Syracuse.
only for,
Sorry.
if only for the food. I think some of my favorite cuisine, these rice balls with ragu
Oh, yes.
filling, and it's arancini.
Oh,
I
yes,
love
that's right. They're very famous in Sicily. And the wine, I guess.
I'm a teetotaler, to tell you the
Oh,
truth.
right. I didn't know that. All right.
Yeah, but I don't have any moral objection. I never much. I like limoncello a little bit. I like aperitifs.
I see.
After dinner drinks
Ah,
are my favorite. And Italian, uh, uh, besides limoncello, what's an amaretto? I think is delicious too.
you started playing guitar at 9. Some of your best known guitars include a 1920s National Steel, a Firebird, Mexican Strat, and a Vincitelli. But you also love, I believe, Italian Doffix overdrive pedals. Is that right?
I do, yes. I was fortunate to hook up with the guy I think who designs and manufactures them. He's a really lovely guy, and he sent me about 7 or 8. But my favorite is by far the Lussuria, Lussuria. It sounds like the luxury. I don't know what it means. It has a really great, warm overdrive sound
Uh-huh.
and sustain.
Right.
So that's what I'm using in my effects lineup. Plus, they have an illumination of little lights that come from the bottom of the pedal.
Yes.
So that lights it up in the dark, often enables me to see what I'm doing, especially if I'm doing a live film score.
Ah,
If I don't have adequate illumination, I might tend to step on the wrong pedal or, miss it entirely.
uh-huh.
Anyway, that's one added benefit of these boxes. Yeah.
Your first big impetus in music was with John Van Vliet, better known as Captain Beefheart. He
Yes.
played in the Rome Pop Festival in 1968,
Mm.
but not in Italy after that. Did you and he just prefer the US?
No, well, he was really, I think, uh, more or less at the whim of booking agents. I don't think it was an aesthetic decision or anything. The last major tour that he did, I was on most of, and as far as Europe, it was basically a UK tour that began in Wales. We went up to Scotland. Then we went to Holland. We played a few shows in Holland and a couple of shows in France and Belgium. I would have loved to have played in Italy. I'm sure he would have too, but it was just not in the cards as far as the agent that we were using. And it was, I think, Virgin Records who we were on were more or less managing the bookings for us. So I
Right.
don't think, but he definitely had an appreciation of Italian culture. And I know, it would have been great to have played there with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After the band retired in the 1980s, you continued with the Magic Band's former members and toured from 2003 to 2006. Was that a happy time for you?
Yes, by and large it was, because the mission behind that project was to sort of play as close to the original recordings as possible. And so I put in a lot of work, principally with my partner, Denny Wally, who had also played with Frank Zappa and John French. And we were really great and lucky to have Mark Boston, who is better known as Rockhead Morton, in the lineup. And French did play drums for some of it, and then he would become like the frontman singer. And Robert Williams, who was in the Beefheart band in my era, was our drummer initially. So we did, yeah. So I did 2 or 3 lengthy tours with them, and they were definitely a lot of fun.
I recall that you also played in a big castle outside in Serbia. Was that right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That was like our one show when I was in the band that was outside the UK.
Uh,
And that went really well. There were people who were just floored to see us, uh, who had followed Beefheart and knew the albums really well, and were just amazed that, some of the players that they had looked up to, or that they definitely had an incredible vibe of ecstatic happiness that we had shown up all the way over there. And I, subsequently spent a lot of time playing festivals on my own in Serbia. So yeah, I mean, I love to play in these ensemble projects, but my main mode of touring for years, just out of necessity, is as a one-man band.
yes.
Occasionally, I'll get with local. I just came from playing in Australia, a tribute to Jeff Buckley, and we used local musicians, Australian musicians. It went very well. Uh, so yeah, it's like I don't have any aversion to do it, but as it's what I'm doing for a living, it's just easier to sort of make money in the mode that I choose to do it, which is solo. But ensembles definitely are a lot of fun when they're working, and but a balance is probably the best, and I think smaller ensembles are better.
In fact, you played solo in 2012, a gig in Sardinia at the Santa Aresi
Yeah,
Jazz
yeah,
Festival.
that was a great festival.
Uh,
I enjoyed that a lot. That was good. Really nice people. A very warm audience. I knew some of the other acts that were appearing there, so we had some good reunions before and after the show.
uh,
And I'd love to go back there. And fantastic food, seafood primarily. I remember that's how I remember some of my best memories are, you know, sampling local delicacies on the road. It's very good. I mean, I'm playing up in Richmond, Virginia this weekend with a live film soundtrack accompanying a very rare Orson Welles film called Too Much Johnson. Like it's a silent movie, but made in the sound era. And I've already put in a request for a special barbecue that they have. I was just touted on a place called ZZQ.
uh.
Supposedly got the best barbecue in Richmond, so we'll see. I'm planning a special trip there.
Cool. You also worked with Alessio Francini. Where did you gig with him, and did you enjoy that?
Oh yeah, Alessio. I think what happened, how that came about was the woman running the Italian fan club, which is based in the Rimini area over in eastern Italy along the coast. A woman named Anarita Mancini put together a tribute and invited me to be the special guest. And then she assembled several singers, all of whom were excellent, male and female. And Alessio Franchini and I definitely bonded, and he wanted to keep it going. He was a huge Buckley fan. He grew up listening. He said he would fall asleep night after night with headphones on, listening to the Grace album, and he was wonderful. So we had a good run together. I did a lot of shows and a bit of touring festivals with him. And also through him, I met my current agent, Luca Zanotti. They're both based in Livorno, Italy, which is a beautiful town. It's sort of the Detroit, I guess, of Italy. It's over on the western coast, but and also big on seafood. And it's so we did a lot of shows together. I got a Lifetime Achievement Award with Alessio performing with me in Parma, Italy. Trying to think what we did a great show in Perugia at a festival called the Moon in June Festival a few years ago, put together by another lovely Italian friend of mine, Patrizia Maccagnani. She has this annual festival, and the name is from a Robert Wyatt Soft Machine song, Moon in June. So I don't know, but Alessio and I haven't played some shows in a few years. I was sidetracked with another Italian Jeff Buckley tribute project with a singer called The Nero, whose real name is Davide. What is his last name? Davide. Well, it'll come to me anyway. Everyone knows him as The Nero, although
Davide Combusti.
There you go.
Okay.
He's just known as De Niro, but it really doesn't mean anything. Like I've assumed maybe it came from Robert De Niro, but no, that's not true. So that was lovely, and we did a lengthy tour right before lockdown of about 10, 15 cities, all up and down Italy. Very long drives, 10, 12-hour drives on the average every day, but great crowd reception. And it was me, Davide, and the producer, who's a multi-instrumentalist, Francesco Arpino, very talented Rome-based producer and instrumentalist. And I'd hope, it would be great to work with all these people again. I'm waiting right now, actually, to hear about some possible dates this summer, but we'll see what comes in. I met the mercy often of agents and then the promoters. I'm not really able to snap my fingers. Like I'm gonna want to work in Italy in this month, and it's not automatically easy, I'm sorry to say, to get on stages, especially after COVID. I mean, that really put a monkey wrench in a lot of people's touring, and I managed to keep going as best I could, and still made a record in Holland, with a young jazz acoustic bassist, Peter Willems, who's won awards. And we have a project that came out finally last year called Double Dare. He's a great player and a great guy. And I hope to do some more shows with him, like a proper tour. But we'll see. Again, I just fingers crossed on all these things. I don't want to talk too much about him because I'm a little superstitious. I might jinx these.
Sure.
But I have various agents and people working on trying to, realize this, because I love to tour. I love to tour. I'm living for the next one.
Just to go back to 2012 and that particular tour, that coincided with the publication of your first book, Touched by Grace.
Touched by Grace, right?
Well,
La Musica con Jeff Buckley, my music, yeah.
How was that received?
Very well in Italy. I mean, it came out, first of all, in Italian.
Yes.
A company called Arcana. It got, super write-ups in all of the largest newspapers and magazines.
You write quite a lot. People don't know this aspect so much of your
right.
work.
Well, I've been doing it more and more, because I'm a verbal person, and actually, my forte going back to my childhood was as a writer, and I had won a National English Award in high school, helped me get to Yale University, where I studied English literature. And so I just, wrote a piece. I like to do sometimes reviews or thought pieces about things that I'm enthusiastic about. The latest one is, well, it wasn't all that enthusiastic, but for a film that just opened up called Renfield, based on Dracula's character, his slave, you know, the Dracula
Yes.
mythos. But I was very disappointed with this film. I thought it was so, I don't know, just didn't hit any mark. And I love horror films, but then again, after about 1978, I'd say the quality of them just fell way off a cliff as they got more graphic and bloody and bloodthirsty. And, you know, I
Uh,
like more subtlety, you know, in art and entertainment. It's much, much better than, you know, to sort of keep a mystery about things and hint at things than to have graphic displays of bloodletting. And, you know, but there seems to be a tremendous appetite among folks in the world, yeah, for this as an entertainment display, along with what you see on the news every day, which is incredibly distressing and frightening to me. But I'm no censor, you know, I wouldn't say you can't show or do these things. But anyway.
You, in 2013, you performed another tribute to Buckley at the Berezzi Festival in Parma, Italy, with Vinicio Caposella.
Yeah, that's where I got another Lifetime Achievement Award.
Okay.
That's yeah. That was great. I love Vinicio, and I worked with him also then in the Moon and June Festival.
Yes.
That was really, I mean, a super great night. And I was exposed to the music just by random coincidence in this restaurant after the show. We had kind of a late night dinner, and I heard an amazing female singing voice. Like, who is this? I have to find out. This is how I get most of my new music knowledge, is just by just encountering it, where somebody comes to me and says, you have to check out this artist. Otherwise, there's way too much of it out there, and I don't know. It's a wilderness of mediocrity as far as I'm concerned, but you know, I'm not a I wouldn't, you know, I'm a Democrat, so it's like you're welcome, you know, young artists to make, you know, as much noise as possible, but you know, I can't keep up with it, so
Uh,
or even like, you know, attempt to. But if I hear something and it moves me or if something resonates, I check it out. This was an artist called Lhasa, like the capital of Tibet, Lhasa, Lhasa Dusela. And I right away Googled her and found out to my heartbreak, you know, that she had passed away just, I think, the year previously of breast cancer. But she has an album out called The Living Road. I totally recommend to people. I think it's some of the best music I've heard.
I agree.
Best quality, and she has an amazing voice. She's really
You also worked with Marie Conti of Zero 07. I
yes.
understand the song You Will See My Flame Again was unreleased. Is that right?
There, it was based on an instrumental I sent to Jeff, who passed away before he died. I'm sorry, who passed away before he died, before he could do anything with the music. But he'd asked me for music in the last year of his life, and I sent him one, and then he said, "Yeah, more. That's beautiful." That's how I used to work with Jeff Buckley. You know, people wonder. You have to read my book to really get into the details, but essentially, I would write a finished instrumental on guitar with all the riffs and all of the harmonic structure and chords, hand it to him, send it to him, and he would come back with perfect lyrics and a melody every time.
Amazing.
Just uncanny, you know, like how good he was. I didn't have to really modify anything. Oh, just once or twice he'd say, double this part. I have some more lyrics, so it sounds like a verse here. That's it, though. He just left it alone. And so what he came up with fit my music just like a glove. It was just beautiful. So I gave this instrumental because, Marina was definitely, Mary. Her actual name is Marina Conti. She loves Jeff's music and asked me for music. So we did that and we performed it. I invited her to play in London with me. She hooked up a guitar festival, the Madame Guitar Festival in Northern Italy. We did that. So have worked with her on and off. And we always do that song. Yeah. But I don't think it's been officially released. I could be wrong, but I kept saying to her, why don't you put it on one of your albums? She's like, no, I'm doing down tempo electronic music, whatever. She was working more in the dance music field, I would say.
From all your touring, and you've
Uh,
toured hugely, do you have any special anecdotes about fans?
well, let's see. Yeah, to tell you the truth, just recently in Italy, I met a young fan who asked me to autograph with a Sharpie her upper forearm here in this area, right under her shoulder.
Mm.
So I did that as best I could. I mean, a Sharpie is not that easy to inscribe on human flesh, I found. But somehow she was able to get a tattoo of the initials GL. And so that was pretty. And no one, the only other time I can think of that something like that happened was an Italian fan, a male fan, has the first four measures of Mojo Pin, the song for Jeff that opens the Grace album, inscribed, tattooed on his arm in a similar fashion, but with music staff and notes and everything. It's a little bit more of an elaborate tattoo than Natalie Bambi is her name, who did this in Australia. But I was really, impressed. I'd say that the fan reaction in Australia was maybe the most overwhelming I've received, and I've toured all over the world, and I've played in at least 40 countries. That this was the most enthusiastic I've encountered in many years. They were really going nuts, but Jeff was really big in Australia, that's for sure. And yeah, the people I worked with on these Australian musicians, John Dixon was the vocalist, he played guitar, and Michael Carpenter, I'm trying to recall. It was a few weeks ago, but you know how you get jet lag. This was 35 hours journey from New York to Sydney going and another 35 coming back. That's very disorienting moving through all those time zones and then recovering from jet lag. I might still be a little bit jet lagged.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
To close, Gary, could you tell us a little bit about how you dealt with COVID and what projects have come out of that since then?
Yeah. Well, when it seemed that we were about to go into lockdown, I was in denial, like everybody, like, no, it's not really going to hit here. And then you kept seeing in the newspaper, oh, they've just shut down this city in Italy, and these people are. So finally, they did decide to lock down, I think, around March 27th. It'll be 3 years, or was it just 3 years? Or 2 years. In 2020, it was. So right away, I said, I'm going to do live streaming. I'd never done it before, but I want to keep visible. And I started to do this shortly thereafter, and I got an amazing response for a long time. I was playing 3 times a week at like 3 o'clock, like clockwork, and then archiving the live streams. I do it over Facebook, and I put them up afterwards on YouTube. So there's a whole cache. If you go to the homepage at GaryLucas.com, there must be a 100+ concerts done over a couple of years. And I would ask for voluntary contributions through PayPal if people liked it. I didn't put it behind a paywall. I didn't think that was a good idea. And I got amazing response, because a lot of people discovered me who had never seen me.
Mm.
And then it was for a lot of people, I think, a comfort, which was a lovely feeling, that there was something to look forward to. And in fact, the tour in Australia came about because a young fan named Pippa Casey, who was in the music conservatory in Sydney, discovered my shows, and she was a big Buckley fan. And she would rise at 5 a.m. to watch them live in Sydney. So she could see them, that would be about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, my time, would be 5 in the morning for her. So that was amazing, and she interviewed me for her senior thesis and then, arranged this tour. So I owe her a lot. She's a lovely person to know. And actually, having been involved in the music business, so to speak, for many years and seen it from all different angles, because I used to have a day job, before I left to go full-time as a full-time musician in 90. I had worked within CBS Records as a mole, writing advertising on demand, to copywriting, basically, and radio and TV advertising, working with art directors in support of whatever artist they decided to hand to me. My favorites being the punk artists during that era, such as The Clash. I did some really good ads for them, and the Beastie Boys later on. But then a lot of stuff, I don't want to, embarrass anybody, I won't name any names, but let's say your basic corporate rock, I just didn't really have much feeling for it. But it was a job, and I was pretty good at, like, just churning out this, advertising. It was not a stretch for me. It was fun, generally speaking. But after doing it for about 13 years, I was like, God, I have to get out of this. It's just killing. I mean, I'm just bored. And then the Knitting Factory Club had just opened in New York in like 86, 87. I went down there because an artist I'd produced, I did a little production in those days, and it was this jazz saxophonist named Tim Byrne. He had a show scheduled, so I met the owner, Michael Dorff, who we gravitated toward each other. And then he said, hey, Beefheart's guitarist, because I'd done that already as on the side while I was at CBS. I got involved in playing and managing Tom Van Vliet, but I kept the day job. They allowed me leaves of absence there. I took vacation time to record and tour with him, but I kept the day job because I knew I couldn't really support myself doing Beefheart music. He offered me a show, Michael Dorff. He said, I think that'd be a good idea. So 1988, after really thinking about it and just on a dare, really, I put a solo guitar show together, went down to the club, and it was not a very good night. It was like a Tuesday in June. Never forget, early 88, June 88. I put a few flyers up in the vicinity of the club. They left my name out of the ad, So I'm sure it was going to be a disaster. I'm like, oh man, no one's going to come, And lo and behold, I got there. There was a line going around the block. And then I went on and I sort of went into a trance and just played my heart out. The first piece was a Nino Rota Fellini theme. I just did a concert here in New York of Nino Rota music put together by the late Hal Wilner, who was a good friend of mine, producer and conceptualist, one of my dear friends who was an early COVID victim, casualty. So we finally got to do the show. But anyway, at the end of the night, they handed me $600 off the door. And I was like, wow. So I went home. My wife had missed the show. She was busy that night. But I was so energized and excited by what I could foresee as possibilities. I was like, I could kick myself that, I haven't really applied myself since the Beefheart project came to an end, but I'm going to now work as hard as I can and to play my way out of my day job, which I did, and really got busy. I began writing songs, putting a group together, doing film soundtracks. And 2 years later, I walked out of CBS around June 1990 with a contract with Columbia Records for one of the first early iterations of my band, Gods and Monsters. So I was already 37 years old. I mean, most people were skeptical, like, oh, you're way too old to do this or whatever, And I was like, well, I think I'm going to give it a shot. At this point, I mean, I have nothing to lose. I figured I could go back. Well, I wasn't planning on it, but anyway, the job still existed. I'm glad I got out when I did, though, because you see, after I got out, the whole structure of the record business changed radically. And a department like CBS Records Creative Services, which I was nominally an associate director at, was discontinued. They just stopped, spending money on trying to support bands through advertising or that kind of, it used to be in the old days, if you got signed, you'd get a trade ad in the Billboard magazine or Cashbox or Record World. Those were the three that used to feature record company advertising for new artists. And then you get consumer advertising if they really believed in you. You'd get a radio spot that would go all over the US to promote your new album. And the biggest acts are the ones that they thought were the most promising would get a television commercial even. So they had budgets and there was a lot of money, floating around. That all went out the window. So I'm glad I got out when I did. I would have been forced out anyway, like I say, because they woke up to the fact that really what was needed more was a way to do promotion the old-fashioned way, which I don't want to get into this because I'm skirting the area of like what occasionally is looked at askance as being illegal, i.e. payola or paying off with gifts or money, DJs, but yeah, let's say they buried that in another like sector of the company. So, but I'm sure even with the majors today, there's some aspect of it going on. I don't know. I don't really follow the activities of the majors much at all. I just, yeah, I'm resigned and happy about actually going the indie route because nobody could dictate to me what I could play or put out. So I've been able to. Sorry, go ahead.
No, Gary, thank you so much for talking us through your experiences.
Sure.
It's great to see you looking so well and so busy.
Well, I love to work. Yes, I love to stay busy.
Planet Guitar, which is the best of luck with all your projects.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you.
All right. Well, bye-bye. Have a great day.